The watch on your wrist on your wedding day lands in every photo you'll keep for the rest of your life. And plenty of guys pick the wrong one. They buy the watch that turns heads at the reception, then quietly retire it by the first anniversary. The one that actually earns its spot is a completely different call. So these are 5 watches worth buying for your wedding, sorted by the moment each one is for, not the money on the tag. And I'll show you where wedding buyers overpay for a name and what actually lasts. Number 1. The watch for the day itself. This is the one that has to disappear under a shirt cuff and reappear in the photos looking like it belongs there. Thin, clean, genuinely dressy, and the pick is the Longines Master Collection. A proper dress watch has one job on a wedding day. It slides under the cuff when your hands are busy, then catches the light when you're holding the ring, signing the license, resting a hand on someone's shoulder in the family shots. Anything chunky fights the suit. The Master Collection is slim enough to sit flat, with a clean dial, a little galoche detail up close, and none of the sport watch bulk that ruins the line of a tailored sleeve. Size matters here more than people expect. A wedding dress watch wants to be modest across and genuinely thin front to back, so it clears the cuff without a fight and never prints through the sleeve of a slim suit. On a simple leather strap, this thing reads formal from across the room and gets out of the way of everything you're doing with your hands. And this is where the money question starts. Longines sits just under the Swiss names everyone name drops, and that gap is mostly the logo, not the watchmaking. You're getting a real Swiss automatic with actual heritage on the dial, without the tax that comes with a crown or a name people recognize off a billboard. For a watch that spends most of its life hidden under a sleeve, paying double for a badge nobody can even see is a strange place to spend the extra. If even that feels like a stretch on a budget already bleeding from the venue and the flowers, the Hamilton Jazzmaster Thin Line covers the same slot for a fraction. Same idea, thin and dressy, a lot less money. Nobody in the photos will know the difference, and neither will you in 10 years. The day of watch is the easy one though, because it only has to be right for a few hours. The next pick has to be right for the next 2 decades. Number 2. The watch you'll still be wearing in 20 years. Every guy buying a wedding watch has the same fantasy. One watch on the wrist for life, the thing your wife eventually points at and says he's had that since the wedding. For that job, the Omega Aqua Terra is about as honest as it gets. The Aqua Terra is the closest thing there is to a one-watch collection. Dressy enough that it works at the reception under the same cuff as the Longines, tough enough that you can wear it to work, on the honeymoon, in the ocean, and to every anniversary dinner after that without babying it. You can call it a dress watch or a sports watch. Neither label really fits because it quietly does both jobs and then disappears into your life. The one you stop thinking about because it just handles everything. That horizontal teak pattern dial is the giveaway to anyone who knows, and it looks as at home with a suit as it does with a t-shirt on the honeymoon. It's built to actually go in the water, so the beach on the trip doesn't send it back to the box. That kind of range year after year is the whole point of a forever watch. Now the honest part. When a guy with real money decides he wants his forever watch, his hand goes straight for a Datejust, and a Datejust is a great watch. But a lot of what you're handing over at that counter is the name and the wait list, not the machinery. The Aqua Terra gives you the same everyday luxury job and an in-house movement that goes toe-to-toe on spec. And it does it while you're paying for the watch, not the crown. That's the wedding buyer trap in one purchase. On a big emotional day, the urge is to grab the most recognizable thing in the case because a famous name feels like it matches the size of the moment. But 20 years of daily wear doesn't care what's printed on the dial, and the daily wear is the part you're actually buying the watch for. That's the watch you buy for the next 20 years. The next one, you're not really buying for yourself at all. Number 3. The one you hand down. Some watches you buy for yourself. This one you buy for a kid who doesn't exist yet. The heirloom pick is the Jaeger-LeCoultre Reverso, and the wedding angle basically writes itself. The Reverso has a case that flips over inside its frame. It was built in the 1930s so polo players could turn the glass face down and protect it during a match. Flip it today and you get a smooth blank panel of steel or gold on the back, And there's no better surface in all of watchmaking for an engraving. The date, a name, 2 initials, and a year. That blank case back is basically asking for it. And that second face isn't a gimmick you're working around. The Reverso was designed as a 2-sided watch from the start, so putting your date and your initials on the reverse is using the thing exactly as intended, not carving up a watch that was never meant for it. Picture what that does 30 years out. The watch from the wedding, the date cut into the back, going onto the wrist of your son or your daughter on a day that matters to them. You can't buy that feeling later. You set it up now. On the one day, the date actually means something. The design carries the case too. The Reverso is a rectangular Art Deco shape that has looked correct and expensive for the better part of a century, so it won't age into some trend that embarrasses everyone in the photos down the line. And the prestige here is quiet. It's a serious watch to the people who know, and just an elegant old rectangle to the people who don't, which is exactly the right energy for something meant to outlive the reception by decades. If you're this deep into picking the right watch for the day you get married, subscribe. Every week I break down watches that are actually worth owning, the ones that still make sense long after the excitement wears off and the receipt is forgotten. Now, the pick for the man who wants meaning over noise. Number 4. The quiet luxury pick. This one is for the guy buying the watch for himself, not for the room. He isn't shopping for the table's approval. He'd rather nobody at that table has any idea what's on his wrist, and that's the entire appeal of Grand Seiko. Picture a Grand Seiko at a wedding. Nobody clocks it. To almost everyone in the room, it reads as a nice, clean, tasteful watch and nothing more. But the people who actually know watches will spot it across the table and quietly lose their minds, because the finishing on the case and the dial sits at a level that costs multiples more from the big Swiss houses. It's the flex that only lands with the people whose opinion you'd actually respect. The classic move is the one they call the snowflake, with a dial textured like fresh powder that shifts with the light all day, or a clean 3-hander if you want something even more low-key. Either way, the watch is doing the opposite of shouting. Get one under a light and the case looks almost liquid, mirror polished to the point where the edges seem to vanish, and that hand finishing is the part that quietly costs a fortune to do right. You'll be the only person at the wedding who knows, and then the only person in the marriage who knows, which for the right guy is the entire draw. And on the money, this is the sharpest value in real luxury. You're paying for hand finishing and a dial nobody can price on site, instead of a logo engineered to be recognized from across a parking lot. For a guy who finds the whole status symbol thing a little embarrassing, but still wants something genuinely special on the day, nothing else comes close. That's the pick for the man who wants the secret. The last one wants the opposite because it's built to get noticed, and it costs almost nothing. Number 5, the one that overdelivers so hard it feels unfair. Every list like this needs the pick that proves you were never required to overspend in the first place. That's the Seiko Presage Cocktail Time. The whole watch is built around its dial, and that dial is the trick. It's a deep, layered, sunburst finish inspired by cocktails, the kind of face you tilt under the reception lights and watch move from one shade to the next. Set it next to watches costing several times as much and holds its own on looks alone. Guests will assume it's the most expensive thing you own. Flip it over, and there's a mechanical movement running behind a clear caseback, so it reads like a real watch and not a fashion piece with a battery hidden inside. That's rare at this kind of money. It's the value story of the entire list, and it isn't close. For the day itself, it's dressy enough to slide under the cuff right alongside the Longines. For the budget, it leaves you money for basically everything else the wedding is taking. And it proves the point the whole video is built on. On a wedding budget, a watch that looks like a fortune and costs a few hundred is doing more real work than a famous logo you stretch to afford. You could buy the Presage, put the difference toward the honeymoon, and still end up the guy whose watch got the most compliments at the reception. If you'd rather go a little more modern, sporty, with an integrated bracelet instead of a strap, the Tissot PRX Powermatic 80 is the swap. Same idea, punching several tiers above its price, just in a dressed-up sporty direction instead of a formal one. So that's 5 watches, 5 different moments. Whichever way you go, keep the real test in your head while you're standing at the counter. The right wedding watch isn't the one that owned the reception. It's the one you still reach for on the morning of your anniversary, years in, when there's no room to impress and nobody watching at all.